And now Trump's transition team says no blanket pardons for the J6ers. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, a lot to talk about today, my friends. A lot of news was made over the weekend. And even though it's Thanksgiving week, Kuhner Man will be on today, tomorrow. Sandy will be filling in for me on Wednesday. So the Kuhner Man, I still got 2 more days to be your loyal, humble servant and give you all the information that you need, and obviously for us to have a discussion and conversation about it. So here is now the absolute latest. Many, many Trump supporters, obviously, and I put myself in this category, love President Trump, are ecstatic over the moon that he won on November 5th. However, there is some disappointment, and I'm in that camp as well, about the decision now that has been made by the Trump transition team. They came out with a statement saying that the January Sixers will not receive a sweeping or blanket pardon when Trump is inaugurated on January 20th. Instead, Caroline Leavitt, the incoming press secretary, she will be the press secretary under Trump. She also is the spokesperson for the transition team, released a statement officially now saying there will be no blanket pardons. However, there may be pardons on a quote-unquote case-by-case basis. Now, apparently in private, the Trump team is saying President Trump wants to pardon many, many, many of the January Sixers. He believes many of them were wrongfully charged, wrongfully convicted, excessively punished, that they have been rotting and sitting in Biden's gulag for way too long, and that most of them are innocent and should never, never have been charged and punished and imprisoned in the first place. However, Trump has now been convinced by people around him that politically, to go all in on his first day for a blanket pardon would upset many establishment Republicans on Capitol Hill, independents, Democrats. Opinion polls show that the American people, at least Democrats and independents, and many rhinos, do not want pardons for the J6ers. Never mind a blanket pardon. And so many are arguing to Trump that this would force him to use up his political capital. And political capital, they say, is a rare, precious, finite, limited thing. And that if he goes all in on blanket pardons, this will lead to a massive controversy and public firestorm, and that Trump needs that capital to get Hegseth over the finish line to be his nominee for Secretary of Defense, Tulsi Gabbard as DNI, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Health and Human Services Secretary, and Pam Bondi as his Attorney General. So their argument is you're going to need that political capital to start expending it for the trench warfare that is to come with all Democrats, frankly, and with some Senate Republicans over these key pivotal nominations to his cabinet. Don't start another front. Don't open another front in this war now between Trump and these special interests and the swamp on Capitol Hill. Now, furthermore, Trump says another reason he doesn't want to give a blanket pardon is that he says there were a few evil, bad people that did evil, bad things on that day. And he says, why would I give them a pardon? Plus, there are those that were FBI. We now know definitively. This is no longer a matter of debate. The FBI has admitted there were at least dozens, if not hundreds, of FBI operatives, undercover agents, confidential human sources. In other words, people working for the FBI who infiltrated the J6ers and clearly tried to set many of them up as so-called insurrectionists. We now know for sure John Sullivan was convicted. Antifa BLM thug who went there to cause trouble, who went there to incite mayhem and chaos. And so Trump is saying, why should I pardon them? Why should I pardon people like Antifa or BLM, like John Sullivan, who went there to cause trouble, who went there to incite the mob? No, I'm not going to give a blanket pardon. So it appears that Trump is going to go on a case-by-case basis. Even if he goes on a case-by-case basis, I think the overwhelming majority of January 6ers will be pardoned or at a minimum have their sentences commuted and will be able to go home on January 20th, the day Trump is inaugurated. Now, let me put my cards on the table, and frankly, I want to take calls right after the break. 617-266-6868, because I want to hear from you, the great audience of Kuhner Country. I understand Trump's reasoning. It's logical. It's coherent. It's very reasonable. I understand that. He's an incoming president, and he doesn't want to use up all of his political capital. I get it. You want to harness it. You want to save it for the big fights that are going to lie ahead. And I understand the argument being given to him by his advisors and people around him. But I'm sorry. When it comes to January 6th and it comes to the J6ers, I am what they call a hardliner. For me, this is a matter of principle. They should not be in jail, period. Full stop. Everyone involved in January 6th should be given a blanket pardon and be allowed to go home to their families on January 20th. And I'll tell you why. Because most of them were clearly set up. Most of them, we now know, the FBI infiltrated, the police egged the protesters in. We have the video. They opened the doors from the inside, and they were waving them in. Many of them even physically removing barricades and saying, come on in, come on in, come on in. And you have people like John Strand, who went in, he was waved in by the police, said, okay, and he walked in, took a look around. When the police then said, please, you need to leave, he left. He never destroyed any property. He never touched a hair on the head of any police officer. He got 3 years in prison. 3 years in prison. Now, he's now out. He served his 3 years. But he said, I deserve a pardon. I now have a criminal record. This is haunting me wherever I go. To get a job, to fly an airplane, to go on a plane, to whatever I need to do in my life. Everything now, this record haunts me. I want a pardon, and as he put it, every J6er should get a pardon. And furthermore, and this needs to be said, those people, the J6ers, went to protest in front of the Capitol on behalf of President Trump. They did it to protest a stolen election, which to me, to this day, needs to be exposed, needs to be investigated, and needs to be thoroughly unmasked. Because I'm telling you, Biden stole the election from Trump in 2020. Those were not insurrectionists. They were patriots. They were true small R Republicans and small D Democrats who went up there to protest against an election that was robbed from the voters and the American people. And they were met with police brutality. They were suckered, they were invited in, and then when they were in, they were then treated as a bunch of thugs and terrorists, and they started to unleash pepper spray on them, Many of them were beaten with batons. Roseanne Boylan lay on the steps of the Capitol unconscious as a Capitol Hill police officer continued to beat her repeatedly with a stick. That officer has never been charged with the murder of Roseanne Boylan. Michael Byrd shot Ashley Babbitt point blank range in the neck. He should be charged with homicide and murder. Instead, they promoted this guy to captain. So, I'm sorry, my friends. That day, there needs to be a reckoning. And the way you achieve that is by giving all January 6ers what they deserve, which is justice. A blanket pardon, and let's move on. Agree, disagree, your call's next. 619 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, news broke this weekend. It's now official. Trump's transition team has now said there will be no what are called blanket or sweeping pardons for the January 6ers. However, Trump's people have said Trump will be pardoning many of the J6ers on a quote-unquote case-by-case basis. So my question to you, I'm just curious, do you support this decision by the Trump transition team, or do you think he's making a mistake and betraying the J6ers? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from a very dear friend of mine who is a staunch Trump MAGA conservative. One of the most ferocious defenders of the president you'll ever find, or the president-elect. And here's what he texted me during the break. Jeff, I am done with Trump. He doesn't need to quote-unquote pardon everyone on January 20th, but he can immediately release all of those still in Biden's gulag, and then on a case-by-case basis reevaluate each one. Unless he does that, and then on a case-by-case basis pardons 99% of those arrested and fully support reparations for those whose lives were ruined in those prisons, I am done. Can't say this word on the air. F his political capital. People are not political capital. People who came to support you, Mr. President. And then he ends by saying this. Granted, there were Antifa there as provocateurs. I doubt they are in Biden's gulag, but even if they are, they can be rearrested. What did Benjamin Franklin say? It is better to let 100 criminals go free than to imprison one innocent man. So let me just say one last point, and I want to go to the phone lines. Let's take the Antifa BLM provocateur, the infiltrator that we know. We caught him on tape. We caught him on video. He was arrested eventually, charged, and convicted. John Sullivan. He was an Antifa thug who went there to cause chaos, to incite, and to get Trump supporters in big trouble. Okay, he wanted to create as much anarchy and lawlessness as possible in order to get Trump supporters to be tossed in the can, all right, to be tossed in jail. Now, people are going to say, well, Jeff, why should Trump pardon him? Fair point. That's a fair point. However, and this has been my problem with the way the J6ers were treated from the beginning, how many people in BLM and Antifa who rioted, burned, looted, murdered, maimed, crippled, assaulted, and literally blinded police officers, in some cases murdered police officers in the summer of 2020, whether it be in Seattle, in Portland, in Kenosha, I could go across in Atlanta, across the entire country. And yet, most of them either were never charged or got a slap on the wrist. Or they were helped out and bailed out by the likes of Nancy Pelosi and Ilhan Omar and, of course, Kamala Harris. So my point just being, this guy, John Sullivan, I'm not defending Sullivan, obviously, but you want to talk about disproportionate justice? He's been spending more time in jail than most BLM Antifa thugs ever did any time over the rioting and looting, the real insurrection that took place during the summer of 2020 after George Floyd's death. So, and this is what I said to Grace last night. She goes, well, what about those that are genuinely guilty of something? You know, real violence or real property damage. They've already spent years in jail. That's more than what most people get from murder in this country now. I'm serious. Or, you know, real assault or, you know, in other words, you ask police officers, they get assaulted all the time. Do they spend 2 or 3 years in jail? Does the perpetrator spend 3 years in the can? No, most of them it's a slap on the wrist. You're lucky if they spend even 30 days in prison. Never mind 3 years in prison. So my argument is, and this is Marjorie Taylor Greene's argument, this is a clear two-tier justice system. Pardon all the January 6ers. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Even a loser like John Sullivan has spent more time in jail than any of his fellow Antifa BLM thugs ever have over what they did throughout the summer of 2020. So they've already done their time, and then some. They need to be pardoned. They need to be allowed to go home on day one, when Trump is inaugurated. And I agree completely with my friend's assessment. Reparations. They need to be compensated. They spent years rotting in a gulag for literally, because for crimes they never committed. They were set up by the deep state. And then they were excessively and unjustly punished using cherry-picked evidence by a weaponized Department of Justice that was out to make an example of these poor people. Where are they going to get their lives back? They're not going to get those years back. They never will get those years back. They deserve to be pardoned, and they deserve to have compensation. Now, I'm sorry, Mr. President, they went there for you, to defend you. Yes, us, election integrity. But they went there specifically to defend your victory, your election, your rights, our rights in the 2020 election. As a matter of principle, every single one of them should be pardoned. Full stop. And I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. The administration is going to find me a pain in the you-know-where on this issue. I will be a gadfly. I want justice for the J6ers. Blanket pardon. Yes, no, agree, disagree. The board is full. Your calls are next. 6:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. All right, I want to take it to you, Kuhner Country. Before I go, the lines are jammed. When the lines are jammed, I go straight to the calls. Before I do, super quick, let's take it to the entire audience, not just the calls. So, this is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Do you think Trump is right in his decision, or the Trump team is right in their decision, because it really came more from the team than actually Trump himself, but still. Do you think the Trump team is right or correct in issuing pardons for the January 6ers on a case-by-case basis. A, yes. B, no. Now, you know where I stand. I love the guy. This is just an honest disagreement. I think I'm a B. I don't agree. I don't want it on a case-by-case basis. I want a blanket pardon, period. And on day one, let's rip that Band-Aid and let's move on. Day one, blanket pardon, everybody goes home. But that's me. I want to hear from you, Kuhner Country. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X, very active again last night. You can, my handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhn as in national ER. Larry, in the great state of Texas, the Lone Star State. You're going to kick us off, Larry. Thanks for holding, and welcome.
Thank you, sir. I'm a retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. I was convicted of the 1512 and the various misdemeanors, served 2 years in jail. Even though I was entitled to get out via the 1512, via an appeal I won, the judge just left me there. So you bring up a good point in that every J6er was denied due process rights, from the D.C. Circuit and from a DOJ that was hell-bent on convicting us. However, you may not be aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, sir, that the work's been done on this. The Patriot Pardon Project has put together a database that details all the charges, whether or not the assault charges were legitimate or not. So I disagree with you on the blanket project, and I'll give you a perfect example. Nathan DeGraves assaulted a Capitol police officer, and I stopped Nathan DeGraves from doing it. I deserve what's called a pardon of innocence. Nathan DeGraves deserves a commutation of sentence. So all of this work has been done. If you go to @Trumpertarian on X, you'll see the lady that's responsible for doing all of this work. But they have a database, and this database includes, people that have lost licenses like myself, as well as a recommendation for expungement from the federal records, which will prohibit a tyrannical FBI from, red flag laws or doing other things to deny us.
You nailed it, Larry. That's another reason why I want pardons, because you're right. Look, you can't. It's hard to get a job. It's hard to get employment. You're on a TSA watch list in many cases. Red flag laws, driver's license. I mean, you could go on and on and on and on. I mean, they've ruined your lives, and you don't deserve that. Now, look, you're a very intelligent man. You're obviously a very principled man. You're a patriot. You served our country, and to me, what you did, all of you protesting that stolen election, was one of the most principled, patriotic, courageous things I've ever seen in my entire life. I have nothing but the utmost respect for you and everyone involved, okay? So I understand. You're saying, well, Jeff, maybe for some people not a pardon, you should have a commutation, right? Look, I'll be honest with you, Larry, and again, of course, you can agree to disagree, and I have nothing but the highest respect for you. But I'll be brutally honest. J6 was a setup. I understand what you're saying. There were some who assaulted police officers. I never support anyone assaulting a police officer. But in the end, and that's why I've been urging Trump, and I think he will do this, he's going to launch a real, nonpartisan, genuine investigation by the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, who I believe is going to be Deputy FBI Director. That's what I'm hearing. We'll see what happens. But there's going to be some very principled people involved who are going to I want them to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th, because I will take this to my grave. That was an FBI deep state setup. They brought in FBI infiltrators. They brought in FBI operatives. There was Antifa in that crowd. We know that now for sure. The crowd was urged by the FBI, the undercover operatives, this is a fact, storm the Capitol, breach the Capitol, go into the Capitol. You have to go to the Capitol. And then, which has never been answered to this day, the Capitol Hill police removed the barricades, opened the door, opened the side door, but opened the main door, which could only be opened from the inside. And we have him on video waving the crowd in. And then once the crowd was waved in, then the order was given to crack down on the crowd. And that's when fights erupted and, they were tussling with the police. And that's when Ashley Babbitt was shot in the neck. That's when Roseanne Boylan was murdered on the steps of the Capitol. I could go on. There were other victims. And look, Larry, I'm a simple man. I was born of peasants and, my parents were peasants and grandparents. To me, give everybody a pardon. Let's go home. Because once we start playing with pardon this person, commute this person, maybe this person here or there you keep in prison, my fear is there's going to be some innocent people who are going to fall through the cracks. And Trump basically has a 2-year window. Let's be very clear. I know he's got 4 years in office, but now he's got 2 years because the midterms are going to strike in 2026. So if this starts to drag on and on and on, I don't want to see people rot in jail any longer. They're rotting in gulags. They are political prisoners. So to me, I understand I'm painting with a broad brush. I understand that. You're being more surgical. I respect that. But I'm just giving you my honest opinion, Larry. Give everybody a blanket pardon. You come in, day one, it's over. The media will yell and scream and holler, and this thing is over, and we can move on. Final word to you, Larry.
Well, as you said, I do agree that we need to let people out immediately. It's just like I said, there's nuanced levels of it. I appreciate and understand your approach. I just don't want to let a lot of these agitators and insiders off the hook, because keeping them on the hook for future crimes or criminal charges will help us get to the bottom of the truth, which is something you and I both desperately want. You are absolutely correct. I saw them removing barriers and things like that. So, yes, I know the federal government was involved. Where's the DOJ report, Inspector General report, that tells us the number of agents? They won't release it. We're going to go through another January 6th without that report being released. It's insane.
Larry, would you say, I've used the term setup, and I think there was a setup. I think there's no question. But, another term is entrapment. This was, how do I say, a lot of these poor people were played. They were, to me, there's no question in my mind. And, look, there's an old lady, I forget her name. Anyway, she's invited in, and she's walking around the Capitol, and she's literally seen taking a selfie with a Capitol police officer. And he's smiling. And then she looks at the beautiful pictures, the paintings on the wall, and then she leaves. They raided her home. The FBI went in, literally, I'm not kidding, guns blazing. They sent in a SWAT team. They kicked her door down. They kicked Grandma's door down. And was it a 10-year sentence or a 12-year? It was some absurd sentence. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, look, I don't know if I was there that day and I'm protesting and I hear that, Mike Pence has, betrayed Trump and stabbed him in the back and passions are running high. And all of a sudden they're opening up the doors. They're pulling back the barricades. And the Capitol Police says, yeah, you really want your voice heard? Get in there. Get in there and yell and scream and holler. Okay. And I could have gotten swept up in that. I wouldn't have hurt anybody. I wouldn't have damaged anything. But, and so I walk in and all of a sudden my entire life is destroyed. Larry, I'm sorry. That to me was unforgivable. What our government did, what the FBI did, what the deep state did, what the Biden people did is, to me, unforgivable. Larry, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868. Okay, Larry made a very good case. He says case-by-case basis. 649 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Trump's transition team has now announced, they've made it official, on January 20th, when President Trump is officially inaugurated as president, thank you, Jesus, he will not be issuing blanket pardons. I'm very disappointed in Trump on this. I want him to issue a sweeping blanket pardon. I want it to be clean, quick, effective, get it over with. However, his transition team people or his spokespeople have come out and said, no, we are going to do this on a case-by-case basis. Trump will pardon many, 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 many of the J6ers, but he says some will be stuck or will remain in jail. He believes there are some evildoers on that day. They're not innocent, and they deserve to be behind bars. So he will not be issuing blanket pardons. Many will be pardoned. Others will have their sentences commuted, as Larry in Texas was talking about. But some will remain behind bars. So it will not be a sweeping blanket pardon. Many of the families of the J6ers, not all, but many, are disappointed in hearing this news, as am I. So I want to set the table, ask all of you, should Trump, is he right? Should he be doing this on a case-by-case decision-making process? Or should it be one clean sweep, blanket pardons, and let's move on? 617-266-6868. Victor in Georgetown. Thanks for holding, Victor, and welcome.
Kuhner man, I have to agree 100% with the colonel in Texas, Air Force man. I'm a sergeant in the Marine Corps, or was a sergeant in the Marine Corps. I never met the colonel from Texas because the Marines don't have golf courses on their bases. That's just a little... It's a little inside joke.
I love how you guys always like to stick it to each other, like the little jabs, the little this inter-service rivalry. But anyway, go ahead, Victor.
He's laughing out loud right now. I guarantee it. Listen to me. You're thinking with your heart instead of your head. And if you think long enough with your heart, you get heart disease. Listen, you got to remember, there is a deadly enemy out there called the Marxist left Democrats. If he issued a blanket pardon for the next 4 years, you would hear the dictator, what he did. He has no respect for, the rule of law. Look at that. He is a dictator. We told you so. And he would have to defend himself. Now, let me tell you what happens because he doesn't give blanket pardon. He gets to open up that investigation on those J6ers, and I want to drag their scraggly butts in front of Congress or in front of a judge and get them to justify what they have done to hundreds and hundreds of Americans. Now, when I medevac people in Vietnam, we had wounded, dying men on the ground. But we didn't just go into that LZ without doing our proper preparation. We had to get clearance on where the enemy was. What were they doing? What were they expecting? Because if not, Jeff, we would land on the damn tank mine and get blown to smithereens. This is the real world. These people want us out of office or ineffective so that they can have their Marxist rules, and then we're going to talk about trans and this and that and everything else for the rest of our lives. He is doing the right thing by taking a prudent approach, taking away that cudgel that they would beat his head in with if he issued, one real good feeling, oh, I'm pardoning them, and then we're absolutely buried. Your thoughts?
Well, Victor, look, again, making a very good argument, just like Larry in Texas. Larry, look, here's another angle that I'm looking at it from. There are about 1,500 people, individuals, who have either been charged or convicted of some crime related to January 6th. There are, however, dozens and dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, but definitely dozens, who are literally been rotting in jail. There's one person who has been sitting in a prison cell for over 1,000 days and has yet to be charged with a crime. 1,000 days. Now, this violates due process. This violates his civil rights. I could go on. He's a political prisoner. These are political prisoners. Now, we say, well, Jeff, why? Of course, Victor, you're for pardoning that person or releasing that person. I understand. But my point is, this idea that, we're going to go on a case-by-case basis and this will be done in 2 days or 2 weeks. When you start doing things on a case-by-case basis, you mentioned the Marxist left, and you're completely right. They're going to be fighting to keep in jail, keep in Biden's gulag, every single J6er. It's going to be administrative, bureaucratic war. And so this idea of, I understand, you want to be nuanced, you want to be surgical, you want to be fair. I get your point. The media is going to crucify him for issuing blanket pardons. But the fact of the matter is, you start saying, well, we're going to do this on a case-by-case-by-case basis. These people are going to still be... Look, this could go on for months. Hell, this could go on for years. And, after a while, you know how it is. This is just American politics. Your mandate begins to slowly fade. You get immersed in other controversies and other battles and other scandals. And then again, many of these J6ers are going to be forgotten. This is why I'm saying you come in day one, it's a clean sweep. Now, I understand some people who should be there, like some of these Antifa thugs or whatever. Well, Jeff, I don't want them to walk. Hey, me neither, but they served a couple years. That's more than BLM or Antifa did for the rioting of 2020. So I look at everything that's happening and I'm like, every punishment they leveled was excessive. It was excessive. Everybody, it was excessive. And you have some people who are still sitting in a jail cell and have never even been charged with anything. Get them out. Get them out. And you got Pam Bondi, who I think is going to do a great job. He's going to do a great job. But, she's got a lot on her plate coming in. She's going at war with the DOJ. She's going at war with the FBI. She's going to be going at war with FISA and the surveillance that they engaged on Trump. So what I'm saying is they're going to be fighting a multi-front war. And again, the J6ers, my fear is they're going to be forgotten and left behind. And I'm sorry. They went to war for us. They went to war for us. I've never rotted in a jail. You're not rotting in a jail. 99.9999% of this audience is not rotting in a jail because of what happened that day. They are. Bring them home. Final word to you, Victor.
Jeff, I couldn't agree with you more on the need for justice. And I think you're going to be very surprised because justice is going to begin when these scraggly SOBs are standing in front of America having to justify the absolute carnage that they have visited upon us working people that care about America. So we're going to get there, brother. It's just a question of what path we take up the hill.
I hear you. No, I hear you. Look, Victor, I love you, my friend, and thank you for your service. People can, agree to disagree. That's what I love about Kuhner country. That's what I love about being a conservative. That's what I love about America. So, again, look, I hear you. We all want the same things. 617-266-6868. Look, one of the things now that I hope does come out, and I hope there are massive congressional hearings and a full-blown investigation sanctioned by the... In fact, it needs a special counsel. And by the way, Matt Gaetz, that's another big piece of news. Please, you got to hear this. This gets better by the second. I'm telling you. Winning, 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 as Donald Trump would say. Matt Gaetz has all but said, can you say special counsel, Gaetz? Forget the Robert Mueller. This is going to be the real special counsel. So you're going to have Gates and others launch a special counsel investigation into January 6th. And in particular, here's what we need. Investigate the January 6th committee. I want Liz Cheney, and I want Raskin, and I want all these crooks and liars that Pelosi put together, and the lies, manipulation, and deception, and the destruction of the evidence, the crimes that they engaged in to peddle the lie of January 6th. I want them investigated. I want the murder of Ashley Babbitt investigated. I want the murder of Roseanne Boylan investigated. I want to investigate the role of the FBI and the deep state in infiltrating and inciting what happened. And I want to know the question, who gave the order to the Capitol Police to let the J6ers breach the Capitol? Who told them to invite them all in? I want to know. And I want Pelosi investigated for turning down President Trump's request 3 days before for 10 to 20,000 National Guard troops. In other words, we need to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And one other very quick point before I go back to the blazing lines. There is now video, tens of thousands of hours of video, mercifully, thankfully, that has been released. You got to see some of this video, my friends. It completely contradicts what the Democrats, the rhinos, and the media have been saying about J6 for 3 years. You got to see, it's unbelievable. You know, what Tucker Carlson showed, and that's what really got him fired, that little, what is it, 6 minutes of video or 5 minutes of video that he showed, is the tip of the iceberg. And I mean tip. They're walking around, these patriots, the halls of Congress, with waving an American flag, shaking the hands of police officers, waving to them, patting them on the shoulder, singing songs. Literally, they're just going up and down. They're not doing anything. Others are being escorted by the police to the Senate chamber. Like, I swear, they're like glorified tour guides. You got to see this. And they're pointing. Look at this painting. Oh, this painting. Oh, this is my favorite. Oh, this one I think really captures the spirit of America. You're looking at this and you're like, this is what? This is your so-called insurrection? Are you guys insane? And they're rotting in jail? These guys that are going up and down the hallway? High-fiving the police? Talking to the police? Shaking their hands? Literally thanking them for their service? I mean, they didn't destroy a painting. They didn't destroy a vase. They did nothing. Okay, they trespassed. Fine. How much does trespass get you? It doesn't get you 10, 15, 20 years in prison, for God's sake. This is what I mean. It was so excessive. We need to find out the whole truth about what happened on January 6th. People need to go to jail for this. They tore our country apart. They destroyed countless lives. Innocent patriots are rotting in dungeons and in gulags. No. I'm sorry. I understand. Many of you are saying, yeah, no, case by case. I hear you. Look, I'm a simple man and I like simple solutions. To me, you come in, it's quick, it's easy, it's comprehensive. I know all the innocent people will be given justice with a pardon. And look, if a couple of these Antifa thugs get out or whatever, I hear you. And I'm like, hey, they got more for this than their fellow Antifa brethren did for all of summer 2020. And look, I'm not defending Antifa and John Sullivan, but smashing some windows and yelling and screaming and shouting and scuffling with the police is peanuts compared to the rioting, the burning, the looting, the maiming, the killing that BLM and Antifa did, whether it be in Seattle, in Portland, in Kenosha, in Chicago, in Atlanta, in LA, in New York, or downtown Boston. Hey, he already spent a few years in prison. I think he did his time. So I'm just telling you, this is honestly how I see it. Of course, many of you disagreed. That's why, hey, we have the show. 617-266-6868. Tommy in West Virginia. Thanks for holding, Tommy, and welcome.
Jeff, I don't want a blanket amnesty. I do want a committee to expose the setup that went on. And I did not know about John Sullivan. I've never heard that name before with regards to an Antifa provocateur. And we really need to get to the bottom of, were there elected officials that set these people up? The only people I want prosecuted with January 6th were the people that vandalized the Capitol. I'm a union guy. I've been to union protests where you have some stooges that go into an office trailer of a job that's going non-union, and they go in there and they trash the trailer, and it's like, really, you're not helping out the cause of organized labor by being a thug or throwing a bag of rats into a restaurant. That's not helping out the labor unions. The way you do it is you peaceably protest. You make an argument to convince people that may not have skin in the game of why it's to their interest in society's interest. And it is true that Donald Trump had documentation about asking Nancy Pelosi to bring in 10,000 National Guards. And our media has deliberately ignored that. What happened on November 5th is the American people, because of social media, have woken up that, something, the mainstream media is no longer credible. And they're screaming like stuck pigs. Brian Stelter, he's back on CNN, and it's like, didn't you people learn anything between him and Jeffrey Toobin just acting like a buffoon? Lubin with Toobin on a Zoom call during the pandemic? No. So I do realize that there are grandmothers that went there that day holding Trump flags, wearing Trump hats, that just walked into the Capitol that they're convicted of a felony. That's just ridiculous. And I've tried to have this conversation with the NPR types and the progressives, and the first thing they do is that it was an insurrection. You cannot take over a country with a flagpole that has a spear on the end of it. You have to have part of the United States military backing you up. That never happened. And what I am seeing now on CNN and MSNBC, because I listen to both every now and then, they're not saying insurrection anymore about January 6th. They're calling it a riot. And you've got to understand the mind of leftists. And probably the greatest guy who's ever changed linguistics has been a communist named Noam Chomsky. And what he's done, he's changed words that, in my youth, the term gay, that meant like a celebration at Easter. We're having a gay old time. Or on the Flintstones. Well, what did that get turned into? Homosexuality. It's all about linguistics and creating narratives. So anyway,
Tommy,
I don't want to be long-winded. You got
no, Tommy, amazing call. Honestly, I think you hit point after point after point. Tommy, look, tell me if you agree or disagree with this. If there is a true, coordinated investigation from a Pam Bondi, Matt Gaetz, Kash Patel, FBI, DOJ, with a real congressional committee hearing, okay, I'm talking a serious investigation. I know this for a fact. They are going to find that it was the deep state and the FBI tied to powerful Democrats that are ultimately responsible for January 6th, not Donald J. Trump. That literally they have not just lied to us and manipulated and deceived us. But it's the exact opposite of what they're telling us happened the last 3 years. Agree or disagree?
I agree, and they should be prosecuted, and they should do time in prison, and especially if they have federal pensions, they should be taken away. What is good for the goose is good for the gander, and it's all about projection, and that's what they're afraid of, and I still support Trump 100%. I'm a frequent caller. I've been with Donald Trump ever since he walked down the escalator stairs at June of 2015 and talked about illegal immigration coming in from our southern border. I'm a huge Trump supporter. I am not a fair weather guy, thick and thin. And you have been a beacon in the harbor over the last 4 years of when it looked like, something, this guy's going to prison. This guy's going to be bankrupt. All right. And it's time we get to the bottom of it, and it's time we got our country back to some sort of civility of where, no, just because I don't like your politics doesn't mean that you can be a bureaucrat and run ramshackle all over me. So, anyway,
God bless you, Tommy. Tommy, God bless you. Tommy, have a very happy Thanksgiving, my friend. God bless you, buddy. 617-2, I couldn't have said it better myself. 617-266-6868. How much time left, Mike? Okay. All right. I'm going to read a text message when I come back in, and I'd love to get your reaction to it. Audience, very split on this issue. So let me just set the table. I promise I'm going to take many more of your calls. 617-266-6868. To the disappointment of many J6ers and their families, not all, but many, and to some Trump supporters. Trump's transition team has now said there will be no blanket amnesty or pardon. There'll be no blanket pardons for the J6ers. Pardons will be issued on a quote-unquote case-by-case basis. Do you agree? 720 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from 603. You can text us 70470, 70470. And, of course, the number 617-266-6868. A couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Now, and I think really 603, I think, captures this chunk, good part of Kuhner country that wants Trump to issue a blanket amnesty. Again, there's obviously disagreement. Some agree with him. It should be on a case-by-case basis, which is what he will be doing, apparently, according to his team. But there are others who say, no, it should be a blanket amnesty. I'm one of those. And so is 603. And please just listen to this, because this is the case. This really is the case. That if you're going to make a case for a blanket amnesty, this is it. Jeff, this is not only a matter of principle. It is a matter of fighting injustice and a matter of righting a wrong. These J6 political prisoners were victims of entrapment by the feds on January 6th. Okay, now this is me now. Bingo. Yes. Okay, but let that go. This 603 continues. Then to make matters worse, the majority of them were denied their rights to due process under the law and were then coerced into taking a plea bargain where they had to bear false witness against themselves under fear of languishing in jail with no hope of release. For goodness sakes, we have heroes like Joe Biggs, a father of a young girl who is a veteran, that is a recipient of 2 Purple Hearts, that damaged nothing. He damaged nothing that day and was sentenced to over 20 years in prison. 20 years, Jeff. To hell with what Trump's advisors say, and to hell with political capital. Let justice be done. May the heavens fall. Amen. Amen, brother. Nothing else I can say. You know, again, I respect very much the argument that people are making. Larry is a J6er himself from Texas. I have nothing but immense respect for Larry. And he says, Jeff, some people don't deserve a pardon. They deserve a commutation. A few actually did wrong, and they should not be pardoned. I hear him. Look, I'm worried the longer this goes on, and you start going through every case, it's gonna become embroiled in the swamp. To me, I just get it over with. It's clean. And move on to the investigation of what really happened on January 6th and go after the real evildoers. And it wasn't those that breached the Capitol. That I can tell you. 617-266-6868 is the number. Agree, disagree. Lisa in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
Well, good morning, Jeff. I listen to you all the time. My husband and I are complete Trump supporters. In the last 8 years, the only thing that I can base everything on is God knows everything, God is in control, and Donald Trump has done nothing to show me that he doesn't understand the whole playing field and that he's got a plan. And if we trust the plan, trust the process he's going to implement, we're going to be okay. I think sometimes people get caught up in words and sentences in the emotion of everything. And we should take a step back, breathe, and understand it's going to be okay. These people are going to get out. They're going to get their lives back at some form. Never the same, but some form. And hopefully, with the promise of God and the promise of Trump, everything will be good.
Oh, Lisa, that's what I'm hoping for. Look, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. Look, I've been getting a lot of emails, texts, messages on Messenger. Jeff, congratulations. I mean, I don't know why they're congratulating me on Trump's victory. By the way, Lisa, I got to say this, really, honestly. You know, I'm walking throughout the building. It's been 2 weeks now. People are still congratulating me. I'm like, am I running for something? You know, it's our victory. Hey, if Kamala won, I feel like telling everybody is, you know, you'd be screwed too. It's not just me. The whole country would be screwed. Okay, but let that go, Lisa. And they're saying, point being, Jeff, I hope Trump's people reach out to you. We hope you get a job in the administration. And I'm like, well, A, I'm really happy being on the air, number one. But number two, honest to God is my witness, okay? Like I'm in the confessional. If President Trump himself called me and said, Kuhner, man, I couldn't have won without you. You were indispensable. You stood by me shoulder to shoulder. What do you want? Name the position. What do you want? I swear to you, my answer to him would be, Mr. President, pardon the J6ers. That's all I want. That's it. Just pardon the J6ers. Bring them home. Then my conscience is clear. Your conscience is clear. And we can turn the page. I want an investigation. I want to know what happened on January 6th. I want the whole truth to come out. But the thought of them rotting in a gulag 1 minute longer, 1 second longer, after Trump is inaugurated, breaks my heart. Lisa, I want them home. They deserve to be home, and they should go home. Your calls next. 7:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very quickly, this is a brilliant text from 917. You can text us 70470. 70470. Jeff, after the Civil War, please, all of you got to hear this. This is an incredible fact that will show you how insane, really fanatical, the treatment of the J6ers has been. Okay? Please, you got to hear this. Jeff, after the Civil War, with one exception, no Confederate soldiers faced any charges for insurrection or any such crimes. These were men who actually killed Union soldiers on the battlefield and wanted to secede from the United States. The only exception was the Confederate commander of the Andersonville prisoner of war prison, the POW prison. And by the way, Andersonville was horrible. I mean, it was as close to a death camp as this country's ever come. And by the way, this guy was executed for the equivalent of crimes against humanity. Now, 917 continues. Jeff, the key issue now is those who remain in prison, who remain in Biden's gulag. Every single one of them can be released on January 20th with an ankle bracelet and sent home under house arrest during the case-by-case basis. So what 917 is saying is, okay, fine. Let's say you want to say we'll take this on a case-by-case basis. Still, release them all with an ankle bracelet if you need to, and have them go home. And this way they can be with their families as their cases are being reviewed. 99.9% should either be pardoned or have their sentences commuted. And the very few, I don't want to speak for 917, but I assume that's where he's going with this. If they really were legitimate crimes that deserve that they be in prison for a legitimate, prison sentence of more than excess of several years, you can send them back in. But to me, what stands out is the Confederate soldiers, the leaders of the Confederacy, were never charged with the crime of insurrection, with the exception of one, the commander of the Anderson POW camp. I mean, that to me is incredible. I mean, how many Union soldiers were slaughtered? How many others were crippled and maimed? I mean, seriously maimed? And I mean, you want to talk about an insurrection. They seceded from the United States. On January 6th, not a single protester was armed with a gun or armed with a knife. The only thing the J6 committee could come up with was a flagpole, that's sharp at the top. So one flagpole. There's your insurrection to take over overthrow the entire federal government. We you, loco. They're crazy. 617-266-6868. Kirsten in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Kirsten, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Kirsten.
So, what really bothers me is, being a January 6er and spending 8 months in federal prison for misdemeanor charges. This case by case, I understand that, the higher-ups want to advise him that it might not be the best idea to let everybody out. But even the people who are charged with assaulting a police officer, I know this firsthand. One of my co-defendants didn't actually assault a police officer, just happened to be near a police officer, and the police officer put his arm on his shoulder. And he went to prison. He missed the birth of his child. You have people in there that have been in there since January of 2021. I mean, no crime. People serve less time for murder than what some of these January 6ers have gotten. I mean, the longest sentence is 22 years.
That's incredible. I mean, that's just mind blowing. It really is. It's unspeakable. I mean, it's just this is a gulag, and these are political prisoners. And Kirsten, I've got to ask you, as someone was a political prisoner, and you have this sword of Damocles now hanging over you, because I take it you have a criminal record. Am I wrong?
Criminal record. I'm still on probation.
So I take it, I mean, you obviously would want a pardon, correct?
Yes.
Do you think every J6er should be given a pardon? Should there be a blanket pardon?
Well, there should be a blanket pardon, but there's 4 types of pardons. And, I struggle with this. I know, it's going to upset some people because some of the January 6ers have gone back and forth with, what about the ones that turned against other January 6ers, their friends, their brothers, their fathers, because they were threatened by the FBI? There's people that turned on Trump. There's people that, did some really grimy things to try and save themselves. And then there's people who, me and I think there's only 10 of us that actually, really took it to trial as a misdemeanor. And I mean, we got ripped to shreds for using our, constitutional right to take it to trial. And we served prison time. I mean, there are people still rotting in prison that haven't even gone to trial or seen a judge. And what's mind-blowing to me, I guess, is how the Supreme Court has not stepped in. I mean, you can't have people in jail that long, being transferred to 14 different locations, being beaten, going through all these, this torment. I mean, we've had people that have died of cancer because they refused to give them their cancer medication. We've had several January 6ers commit suicide. I mean, we know that the government is withholding over 11,000, 44,000, whatever the accurate number is, of video footage because it implements the FBI. Undercover agents that caused damage on January 6th and actually committed crimes, and they don't want the public to know.
Kirsten, let me ask you point blank, because I think Trump has promised an investigation, and I pray to God he delivers a real investigation of what happened on that day and who was ultimately truly responsible. In your view, was January 6th an inside job?
Yes, it was definitely a setup. I think Nancy Pelosi was at the top of that list. And I think that Trump really, he needs to not surround himself with the swamp creatures like he did the first term. He has had plenty of time to figure out who people are. I mean, we're figuring out who some of the Republicans are just by Matt Gaetz being nominated. I mean, we need to get these people out of office, and he needs to figure out how these judges actually face some type of punishment or are just taken off the bench. Because if people had time to read all of our cases, our appeals, our transcripts of what was said to us, what was done to our families, and what has been done to our entire lives. I mean, I'm struggling to find a job. I mean, they don't want to hire us. We get hate mail. I mean, the harassment is unbelievable for, standing up. Nobody insurrected the sitting president that we wanted to be president. So, first of all, it was never an insurrection. We just wanted them to do what was right, and it should have been sent back.
To the
we
States,
all know that
right?
they stole 2020. Yes.
How much time left, Mike? Okay, Kirsten, we've got about a minute left. So I'm just curious, are you hopeful that Trump will give you a pardon? Has the campaign or has the team reached out to you in any way? Has anybody reached out to you about a potential
Nobody
pardon?
has reached out. No. I've tried to reach out to Caroline Leavitt. I've tried to reach out to people. I actually met Caroline Leavitt before I went to prison. And so, no, I'm actually surprised. I mean, I know Suzanne knows. Suzanne Monk has, anybody can get it. It's free. It's the J6 pardon book. She has done everything for Trump, case by case. And I just think that they should be reaching out. I think that we should all go to Mar-a-Lago. Trump should talk to us all personally, and there needs to be, payments for what we've gone through, everything we've lost.
No question. No question, Kirsten. A full pardon and compensation at a minimum. Kirsten, God bless you, and have a happy Thanksgiving. And hopefully justice will finally come on January 20th. Kirsten, thank you once again. 617-266-6868. All of your calls next. Best audience in the business. Jeff, you keep saying it all the time. You're like a broken record. I know, but it's the truth. 7:50 now on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay, Kuhner man is battling a little bit of a cold, scratchy throat, kind of nasal congestion. Nothing serious, but if I sound a little not quite, the same, the Kuhner man's battling a cold, so forgive me. Okay, Cheryl sent me this on Messenger, and she is not 100, but 1,000% correct. Jeff, Capitol Police admitted under oath that they invited people into the Capitol and then claimed that they trespassed. That's entrapment. Bingo. Cheryl goes on to say, the illegitimate J6 committee, Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff, Jamie Raskin, Adam Kinzinger, all of that, these criminals, literally destroyed evidence and hid video footage. And then this one. Many of you probably don't know about this. But and Cheryl says, please, Jeff, you got to get this information out there. In 1983, on November 7th, two left-wing activists, Susan Rosenberg and Linda Sue Evans, placed a bomb in the U.S. Capitol that tore through the second-floor Senate wing in an attempt to assassinate Republican senators. So we're talking now about exploding a bomb at the U.S. Capitol that tore through the second-floor Senate wing. Okay, we're talking about boom. On his last day in office, not Donald Trump. No. Bill Clinton commuted their 58 and 40-year sentences at the request of a group of Democrats led by New York Democrat Congressman Jerry Nadler. So in other words, my friends, please, you got to hear this. The first domestic terrorist attack against our capital and against, quote unquote, our democracy. Again, we're a republic, not a democracy, but I'm using their language now. And our democracy was by left-wing activists, not by Trump supporters on January 6, 2021, as the mainstream media and Democrats are trying to make you believe. It was also Democrats who forgave these left-wing terrorists for their crime. So let me ask you this, and this is Cheryl's point as well, and I agree with her 1,000%, not 100, 1,000%. Where was the outrage over Bill Clinton's commutations and his pardons? So let me get this straight. You can blow up the second floor of the Senate building at the Capitol? Place a bomb in an assassination attempt? To murder, to massacre Republican senators? And you release them? No problem? And the Democrats say, oh, we got to turn the page. We got to turn the page. We're not talking about bombs exploding, bullets flying. We're talking about grandmas walking in the halls of Congress. We're talking about one guy with a flagpole. We're talking about people who were invited in urged to come in by the Capitol Police. And we're going to keep them rotting in a gulag for 5, 10, 15, 20 years? I'm sorry. No. Absolutely not. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868 is the number. Russ in Boston. Thanks for holding, Russ, and welcome.
It is a rare occasion that you and I disagree. This is unusual, okay? On a case-by-case basis, we will see this injustice totally exposed, including those who gave the order and those who infiltrated to cause chaos. Under President Trump, our revived Justice Department will expedite these cases. They will not linger, believe me. And all who are found innocent must be paid triple damages, and I'll repeat that. They must be paid triple damages for all their losses, including attorney's fees. And that's the only way justice will prevail with the people who should never been incarcerated in the first place. Plus, all incarcerated must be transferred to low-security facilities with all amenities close to their home so their families can visit them on a daily basis. And that is the right thing to do.
Russ, I hear you. Look, I hear you. You're making a very strong case. Many others have made it as well. And look, I doubly respect it because Larry, who started off the show as the first caller, served our country. Victor served our country, and you served our country. So honestly, when I hear service members calling in, no one believes in the Constitution and the rule of law more than you who've put put your lives on the line for this country. So I have nothing but the highest respect for your opinion. My fear is this, and I know you're saying the DOJ is going to expedite this. They're going to be aggressive. They're not going to want these cases to linger. I hear you. But, Russ, look, you're a very astute observer of politics. You know the swamp. They're going to fight Trump tooth and nail on everything. They're going to fight him on every nomination. They're going to fight him on every policy. They're going to fight him on every executive order. It's going to take time to clean out the DOJ and the FBI. My fear, Russ, is if we go on a case-by-case basis, this is going to go on and on and on. And I'm worried that someone like Kirsten is not going to be pardoned, that she's going to fall through the cracks, that basically career DOJ lawyers are going to say, hey, she served her sentence. It was 8 months. She's out. What are you pardoning her for? And that J6ers are going to be forgotten. Because the problem, Russ, is this. They have no constituency. I mean, they have us. I mean, I understand we love them and we care for them. But, Trump's got to deal with the border. Trump's got to deal with inflation. Trump's got to deal with the economy. Trump's got to end this war between Russia and Ukraine. I could go on and on and on and on and on. The J6ers, politically, if you just look at public opinion, are a liability to his administration. Democrats, independents, if you believe the polls. So he's got tremendous pressure on him not to free as many people as possible. And my fear is you keep your eye off the ball and it's going to be innocent J6ers who will pay the price. What say you?
Well, Jeff, first of all, let me put it in this kind of a context. I'm a firm believer that if you want to get something done, give it to someone that's busy, okay? Now, Trump is an amazing person, okay? I mean, seriously, he's 1 year older than I am, and I don't have anywhere near his stamina. It's just incredible. I respect the guy for so many issues. Believe me when I say this. This is a top priority. And always remember, with great leaders, they know how to delegate, okay? And he will delegate to the right people that this stuff will not go. And, Jeff, you know what the biggest hope is for me? Look, I've recognized these SOBs since 1968. I'm no Johnny-come-lately to the swamp or anything else, okay? But, Jeff, you know what I'm so happy for? Now, finally, thanks to Trump, many, many more Americans, the majority of Americans, this has been exposed. The cat's out of the bag. They cannot get away with what they got away with for umpteen years, Jeff. And believe me, I'm a happy camper today because I honestly believe justice is going to come back to the Justice Department, and we're hopefully going to be God, family, and country again.
From your lips to God's ears. Russ, if I don't have a chance to speak to you before Thursday, have a wonderful, blessed, happy Thanksgiving, my friend. And as always, thank you for your service, buddy. 617-266-6868. Okay. This is from Marianne on Messenger. I respect her opinion immensely. She's a very intelligent woman. And so she's weighing in as well. Very interesting angle and perspective. I want to throw this log on the fire. Jeff, good morning. You know, just thinking a little bit about this makes me wonder if it's possible that the statement put out by the Trump transition team, i.e., no blanket pardon, it will be on a case-by-case basis, was mostly for optics. And what do I mean by that? Is it that it may not be wise for Trump to come out with guns blazing, saying that he's just going to automatically do a blanket pardon? I mean, think about it. The guy hasn't even been inaugurated yet. And can you imagine between now and then the damage that the Democrats would try to do before the inauguration if they heard that, knowing Trump, he's already got a plan in place in his mind and his people know what it is and they're all working together, but they really don't want to come out and say it at that point. Have the confidence in Trump that this is what is happening behind the scenes. Optics, optics, optics. Of course, I certainly don't have any clue, but that's just a thought that popped into my head. Just knowing how he operates, I believe with all of my heart that January 6th was an inside job, especially knowing that that old Botox-laden corpse of Nancy Pelosi orchestrated it. She's the one that refused him the 10,000 National Guard troops. And by the way, wishing you, Grace, the kids, and all of Kuhner country a wonderful Thanksgiving. A happy Thanksgiving to you as well, Marianne. In other words, and I don't want to put, words in her mouth, but essentially, Jeff, look, he comes out guns blazing and says, no, I'm giving a blanket pardon. Here's my middle finger to all of you guys. That the Democrats, it's just going to add fuel to the fire, gas to the fire. That, you know what, we got to stop Trump. We got to destroy his presidency before he even gets there. Oh my God, he's gonna pardon every single one of these J6ers. So according to Marianne, the optics of this are going to look bad. The Democrats are going to use it to plunder and pillage his transition team and try to undermine his presidency before he even gets into office. While really behind the scenes, Trump is probably going to pardon or commute the sentences of 99.9% of those that are right now rotting in Biden's gulags. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So, Jeff, in other words, a blanket pardon, the optics look bad, and that's what Trump's team understands. That's why they're going with this case-by-case decision in terms of how he's going to approach the J6ers. Interesting. Agree, disagree. Sue in Boston. Thanks for holding, Sue, and welcome.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm Sue Ayani. I'm J6er. I think the problem is, I understand where some people are coming from saying, well, he can't, let the violent ones go. That'll look really bad. What people don't understand who weren't there is that these so-called violent ones, we were attacked first. There were some people in the very beginning, before most people showed up, that broke through some barriers and, attacked the first 5 cops. Why they only had 5 cops around the perimeter of the Capitol, which is about 2 to 3 blocks in length, and it has 6 sides, is beyond me. That's part of the setup. But the rest of us, 1.5 million people that day, had no idea that happened. And we just funneled onto Capitol Lawn because we had permits to be there and wanted to see the rest of the event, which had speakers, and Trump was supposed to be there as well. Now, we're milling about talking, and we're getting fired upon. One man's jacket caught fire. We see, old people are hacking up a lung. We don't know what's going on. One woman, she was trying to talk to Capitol police officers. They pushed her backwards down marble steps. Now, and then two men died of heart attacks. One was hit by an incendiary device, and it must have exploded against him, and he died of a heart attack on the spot. So two dead people are taken away in stretchers right away. Most people don't know about them. Now, you have 25% of the people there were veterans, and there are a lot of alpha males there, 30 and 40-year-olds, who are furious at the violence that's happening against innocent people who had no idea what's going on. We're being tear gassed, and that has a mental effect on all of us. And we're expected to behave like perfect things.
Sue, sorry, I just want to get all the facts out because I promise I'm not trying to interrupt you. I've seen video footage. I've seen it. So I know exactly what you're saying. I know it's true. Of the police preemptively, not in response, preemptively using pepper spray and tear gas. I've also seen them shoot rubber bullets. So when you say they were shooting at us, was that rubber bullets they were shooting at the crowd?
Being shot. I know one man in the front got a hole in his face. Most people have seen that picture. There were others, though, because I saw a very elderly gentleman walking around. He must have been in shock because he's just telling people, look, I got shot in the face. And he's walking around bleeding. He was wearing his old army jacket, and he's just bleeding on it. It felt so bad for him. That's what they were doing. And honestly, we didn't know if they'd eventually move to more lethal force against us, but we stood our ground because they really had no right to do that. But that's not the point I'm trying to make right now. No violence was premeditated. And when people say, well, they were violent toward police officers, that sounds really bad. And my father's a retired state trooper, so I get that, believe me. But when you're attacked first and you see helpless people around you hurt by an attack, these alpha men are getting furious. And they start yelling at cops and yelling at them, and they're touching a police barricade and pushing on it, and they're told they're getting charged for violence because they're pushing on a police barricade. Right now, that's assault against the police officer. Right there, assault against the police officer. So that's one charge. Another one, a police officer is yelling at them, what are you doing? He's a retired New York cop. What are you doing? Where's your training? You don't fire rubber bullets at people. You fire at their chest. You're going to kill somebody. Because he knew you could fire a hole through their eye or something, really kill them. He knew they didn't know what the hell they were doing. So what happens? He gets cold cocked in the face. So he gets up, he grabs the guy's mask and the cop's mask and pulls it off his face. He's doing 8 years. So that's violence against the police officer. These are the kinds of people that your listeners don't know about, but they're saying they need to be kept in prison. Okay? They don't understand the circumstances of this violence. Another thing is, the types of violence against police officers, it's kind of like she pounded her ear against the officer's fist. The prosecutors have spun so many individual cases where there was no violence, where cops attacked people and they turned it around to people attacking cops, that, it's just mind-blowing. The corruption in the prosecutor's office, and the judges know it's BS, but they're just going along with it. So that's
Sue,
what
you nailed it. Look, it was how weaponized the Department of Justice and our legal system and these corrupt liberal Democrat judges who allowed, these were rigged trials for the most part against the J6ers, using, as you point out, cherry-picked evidence. So they're just cherry-picking. They're not telling you the whole context or what the whole truth, what really happened. They're just selectively telling you what they want you to or want the jury to hear. So you're completely right. No, Sue, one of the questions I have, because I saw this on tape, it's a peaceful crowd. It's complete. You can see it. It's a peaceful crowd. And from a higher point, okay, a vantage point, some of these Capitol Police officers just randomly, out of the blue, start firing rubber bullets into the crowd. There's one guy, I want his name, I want his badge, this guy's got to go to jail. And he's saying, shoot the mother effers, shoot the mother effers, shoot the mother effers. So he's giving the order. And these guys, it's just with the rubber bullets, boom, 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 into the crowd. And then they say, oh, the crowd got angry. Oh, the crowd started to push back. The crowd was under siege. Who gave the order for the police to unilaterally, preemptively, they shot into the crowd before anything happened, or use pepper spray, or use tear gas, or start punching people in the face, or taking their batons out and cracking their heads open? So, Sue, look, they should be pardoned. They should be pardoned the second Donald Trump comes into office. Do you believe Trump should issue blanket pardons? We have less than a minute. Go.
Absolutely, he should issue blanket pardons, because there is a huge difference between premeditated violence and somebody who's been attacked reacting to violence. So, these men who are in trouble have suffered enough. They've suffered so far beyond what would normally be, even if they were the aggressors in a riot. In a riotous situation, when somebody winds up fighting with a cop, they would never be put in prison for...
Oh, I agree. You're completely right. For 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years? Are you serious? Again, look at Antifa. Look at Black Lives Matter. Look what they did in 2020. It's a two-tier justice system. Pardon them all. 821 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. To issue a blanket pardon or not to issue a blanket pardon? That is the question. Trump's team over the weekend made it official. They have now come out and said there will be no blanket pardons for the January Sixers, disappointing many Trump supporters, not all, certainly, that instead there will be pardons. There'll be many pardons, or commutations, but especially pardons. But however, it will be on a case-by-case basis. Where do you stand? Do you support this decision by the Trump transition team? Or do you think he has let down the J6ers? 617-266-6868. Lines are jammed. Dan in the great state of New Hampshire, the live free or die state. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Listen, Jeff, I got to agree with Larry, Victor, and even Russ. I mean, this is the national media trying to disrupt the transition team for Trump. Trump never campaigned on blanket pardons. In several interviews, President Trump always said it would be a case by case. Look it up. Have Mike look it up for you. You'll find plenty of them. And what's going on here? they want to take our eyes off of what just happened. The corrupt elections. Last week, there was a guy you talked about, Jeff. You said that they use same-day registration to steal elections in New Hampshire. You were absolutely right. You said, okay, that they are rigging elections. A lot of the fraud is coming through Manchester. You're absolutely right. Danuto's rigging it in Manchester, the Seacoast, and who's the mayor in Manchester? It's a Republican, Jay Rouet, who's in on it, in on the rigging. You got to remember, they're using the mayors, the clerks, the whole cabal. And listen, the moderator, Don from New Hampshire, he talked about that I was wrong. Okay, hey, I don't blame him because there's videos, okay, of the dirty Secretary of State, David Scanlon, talking. He was asked by the Executive Council, Joe Kenny, asked him a question to Scanlon. Do the absentee votes need to be notarized? Have they been notarized in the past 2 decades? David Scanlon, his words, not as long as I've been in office. Okay? So, and then he goes on to say the moderators and election officials are not professionals. They're volunteers. The system is not perfect. Well, who's educating these people? Who's telling them how to run these elections? Okay, Jeff? He's the one. Him and Deputy Secretary Erin Hennessy, they're the ones that are doing it. Okay? They are telling people.
I mean, I have to say, no, Dan. Look, Dan. You've really made your point. Almost to the point of beating a dead horse. I mean, you're right. You're really right. You're completely right. To me, look, Dan, you have been vindicated. I think there's no question. The New Hampshire election system. I don't want to quibble. Is it as corrupt as Massachusetts? Slightly less corrupt? Slightly more corrupt? All I can tell you is it is a corrupt election system in New Hampshire. And I'm sorry, they're stealing elections up there. It's obvious. They stole it from Trump in 2016. They stole it from Trump in 2020. And they stole it from Trump in 2024. Okay, at a bare minimum. And look, to me, I'm sorry, it's disgraceful. I think this same-day voting registration is a disgrace. It's a fraud. I think the illegals voting in New Hampshire is an absolute disgrace and fraud. I think exactly what you're pointing to about how they can't even vouch for most of the ballots. But you're right, they haven't been notarized in decades. So, look, it's obvious. They're running a sham, corrupt system in New Hampshire, and the rhinos are in on it because it benefits them. And the people that lose are MAGA. Now, hopefully MAGA will wake up. We shall see. But until MAGA wakes up in New Hampshire, we're going to keep losing elections. But Dan, I don't want to get sidetracked. To me, what does this have to do with the issue of issuing blanket pardons or on a case-by-case basis? 8:32 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, this debate now within MAGA, within the Trump camp, Trump supporters heating up, getting very passionate on both sides, respectful, very respectful. Really, actually, honestly, very commendable. No insults, no name calling, nothing. It's just argument versus argument versus argument versus argument. It's very well done. What a debate should be, a genuine debate. This is from John Strand. I mentioned him earlier in the show. Honestly, my heart breaks for this guy. He spent 3 years in prison. 3 years for wandering around the halls. Police let him in. He walked in and was out within 5 minutes. Didn't touch anything. Didn't damage literally just walked in and walked out. And anyway, 3 years of his life in prison, gone. He says, like many J6ers, can hardly get a job. I have a criminal record. Hard to get a loan at a bank. I mean, everything is now difficult. Everything. Because I'm seen as a criminal. I get hate mail, constantly harassed, spied on by the government. I'm on a TSA no-fly list because they're branding me as a domestic terrorist because of what happened on January 6th. So he is pushing hard for a blanket pardon. And so I want to read this post that he put up on X because I think he makes some excellent points and get your reaction to it. I see an awful lot of chatter about J6 pardons. Quote, case-by-case basis versus blanket, unquote. In other words, case-by-case basis versus blanket pardons. So let's review the facts and the law, because in a serious society, they both matter. Every J6 defendant was denied an impartial jury, a blatant constitutional violation. Every J6 defendant was subject to selective prosecution by the Merrick Garland DOJ, another blatant constitutional violation. Every J6 defendant was victimized by a corrupt and overtly weaponized DOJ that maliciously lied about the facts and abused improper law to coerce fraudulent pleas and manipulate a defamatory, highly destructive false narrative. Every J6 defendant's case was tainted by exculpatory evidence being hidden by the government, a blatant Brady violation. Every J6 defendant's case was also tainted by a grossly corrupt select committee primetime propaganda production. That's that ridiculous J6 committee that he's talking about. You know, Liz Cheney and Raskin and Schiff and all them, Kinzinger, the Crier, and further tainted by criminal fraud committed by the congressman on that committee who destroyed evidence. And this is his key point. Nobody should be prosecuted for quote-unquote violence by a government that facilitated and instigated that very violence, especially in the context of a First Amendment protected political protest. January 6 was obvious entrapment with documented evidence of government fraud, dereliction, and police abuse. All J6ers must be pardoned and restored, or the Constitution is dead and worthless, along with any semblance of national honesty and moral integrity. And then I don't want to continue reading because it's a very long post, but he also says that, and I agree with this as well, 1,000%, for those within and alongside the government who conspired to facilitate and participate in the J6 entrapment, I'd venture to guess none were charged, and that should be fully investigated and prosecuted by a legitimate DOJ, i.e. Pam Bondi and Matt Gaetz. I agree. I completely agree. But, you know, I mean, I got to say, John Strand makes a great point. Every single case, whatever you think about him, had blatant constitutional violation after blatant constitutional violation. They were denied an impartial jury. They were denied due process. They were victims of a selective prosecution. They were the victims of a corrupt and weaponized DOJ that literally lied about the facts. Every case was tainted by exculpatory evidence that was deliberately hidden by the government. That's a blatant constitutional violation. And then, of course, you had the J6 committee, which was an absolute joke. And then, really, I think the killer argument is, how could anybody be prosecuted for violence or an insurrection when you had a government that facilitated and instigated that very violence? And in other words, and it was obvious entrapment. So, to me, if you look at it in totality, that's what I'm saying as a matter of principle. Now, look, Dan is right. The previous caller, Dan in New Hampshire, Trump never campaigned on a blanket pardon. He didn't. He gave an interview to Time Magazine. Now, he was a bit stronger in the Time Magazine interview than his team is laying out now. He basically said, you know, I'm putting slightly words in his mouth, but yeah, 99%. I mean, I can read to you what he said, but he said almost everyone will be pardoned. He said there'll be a few exceptions. Those who are evildoers, who really committed evil acts or truly criminal acts. He goes, but outside of a handful, he goes, everyone else is getting pardoned. Well, now his team is saying, on a case-by-case basis. So that's a bit of a weaker, they're not saying there aren't going to be a lot of pardons. But Trump essentially said 99.9% are going to get pardoned. That's what he said. But no, Dan is right. Trump never said, hey, I'm giving out a blanket pardon. He never said that. So in that case, it's true. John Strand's point and my point is, as a matter of principle, as a matter of law, as a matter of our national honor and national integrity, this thing was evil from the beginning. It was unconstitutional and illegal from the very beginning. It taints every single case. Every single case. Entrapment is entrapment is entrapment. Even if someone is guilty, you know the law. If the police are caught entrapping, person walks free. So what I'm saying is, I think Strand's got a very good argument here. And I hope Trump is listening. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Dave in Revere. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Dave?
It is a nice sunny day in Revere. The sunrise was beautiful this morning. Jeff, let me break it down simple. You got all these people that are stuck in that gulag, prison, dungeon, whatever they have. Now, here's how I look at it. Let all of them go, okay? But before they get released, I don't think they should deserve to have an ankle bracelet on, because 90% of them didn't even do anything and cause anything. What they should do is have all the addresses of all the innocent people who were there and got sucked into this craziness that happened that particular day. Then let them all go. Jeff, they get sifted out just like you sift weeds out of the grass and everything else. They get sifted out the crazy ones who's caused that situation that particular day. And as you said, it lies on Pelosi, because Pelosi never gave Donald Trump the National Guard truth that he asked for. Okay? So it's partly her fault. 99% of it's her fault, because she denied him his right to have the protection to keep that from even happening that day. So they should be released with all the addresses before they get released. And on top of that, Jeff, that way they can send them a summons in the mail to appear in court before the committee if they want to do it the right way. Let them out of jail. Let them go home, get away from all this without an ankle bracelet, Jeff. And all the innocent ones will show up in court. You and I both know this. It's the stragglers who caused all the insurrection that day, shooting off their mouth and everything else.
Dave, look, I love it. I think you put it in a very simple but very clear way. Look, the wrong people are in jail. That's what's remarkable. Literally, the wrong people are in jail. Pelosi should be in jail. Those police officers that allowed the crowd in should be in jail. And I want the one who ordered them to allow the crowd to come in. I want to know who ordered that big door to be opened, who ordered the barricades to be pulled back, who ordered the police to fire rubber bullets into the crowd. I want them locked up. 849 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very quickly, because, there's just so much oxygen now being taken out of the room with a really good discussion and debate on whether we should have a blanket pardon or a case-by-case decision on the issue of the J6ers, that I'm just worried that this incredible piece of information is not going to get out there. So let me do it now, because trust me, you need to hear this. There are really, look, I don't want to say, if I single out these two, people are going to say, what about this person? What about that person? So let me just phrase it like this. Two of the most outstanding journalists, and not the only ones, but two that stand out for me, who have really blown the lid off of January 6th, are Julie Kelly, who I think has written a definitive book on January 6th, and Paul Sperry, who's an investigative reporter at Real Clear Politics, formerly at the New York Post and Investor Business Daily. I think he's one of the best journalists in the country. Period. Full stop. Anything Paul Sperry writes is gold. Paul Sperry has been digging up information that the mainstream media either doesn't know or they're desperately trying to cover up. Now, in particular, okay, and let me bare my soul to you. Let me be brutally honest, like I'm in the confessional. The murder, and that's what it was, the murder of Ashley Babbitt on January 6, 2021, haunts me to this day. Her parents, her family, desperately trying to get justice. They have not been able to get justice. And there were four others who died on that day. I want justice for all of those who were murdered on that day. Roseanne Boylan is another one who was mercilessly beaten to death on the steps of the Capitol by an out-of-control Capitol Hill police officer. I mean, that was murder. There's no other way to say it. Well, I want you now to listen to this, okay? Because part of what I want Trump to do, and I'm praying he does, with Pam Bondi as Attorney General, Kash Patel at FBI or Deputy Director of FBI, Matt Gaetz now taking a special counsel, some kind of a special counsel position, is I want Captain Michael Byrd. I want him investigated, and I want him charged with capital murder. I want him charged with homicide. Listen now to what Sperry has now uncovered. Okay, listen to this on X. After then, United States Capitol Police Lieutenant Michael Byrd shot and killed unarmed Trump demonstrator Ashley Babbitt on June 6, 2021, the FBI, listen to this, turned Byrd down for a personal application to purchase a shotgun, according to newly disclosed records. Byrd failed to pass a background check in September 2021. 9 months after January 6. They wouldn't let him even own a shotgun. Now, you may say, Jeff, whoa, I thought he was a hero. Hey, they made him captain. They promoted the guy. Yeah, to keep his mouth shut. So, if he's this hero who stood against the insurrection by shooting an unarmed woman right in the neck at point-blank range, why would this guy not be able to get a shotgun? And why couldn't he pass a basic background check? Well, again, Paul Sperry, hat tip to you, my friend. Again, on X, newly released United States Capitol Police records reveal that Byrd, again, the man who killed unarmed Trump supporter Ashley Babbitt, previously, here it comes, was referred for disciplinary action 6 times. Not once, not twice, not 3, 6 freaking times. And was suspended, listen to this, for at least 40 days without pay. He was a rogue bad cop. His record, this is irrefutable. The guy who shot Michael Byrd, who shot Ashley Babbitt in the throat, was a dirty, bad, rogue cop whose background was so bad, this guy couldn't pass a background check. This guy couldn't even purchase a shotgun. Was referred for disciplinary action 6 times, suspended for at least 40 days without pay. And as Paul Sperry said, quote, nonetheless, Lieutenant Michael Byrd was promoted to captain last year. This stinks. It's called kicking him upstairs. It's called, this is how you keep his mouth shut. So you promote the guy. You kick him up to continue the cover-up. Now, one more from Paul Sperry, and that's it. So, Trump supporter Ashley Babbitt's killer was cleared of wrongdoing by Biden investigators. Listen to this. Without an interview and despite his checkered past, in an apparent whitewash, according to Babbitt attorney. By the way, Byrd, big BLM supporter at the time. It was all over his social media. Huge BLM anti-Trump guy. Hated Trump, hated MAGA, hated Trump supporters. So, you investigate the murder of a 14-year Air Force veteran, an unarmed, innocent civilian, shot point blank in the freaking throat, and you don't even interview the cop who shot her? Of course this was a whitewash. Forgive me. This was a BS investigation. Bull, you know what? You know what I really want to say? This was a bullcrap investigation. That's what this was. Now, I hope Trump, again, I want Byrd investigated. I want him interviewed. I want him under oath. And I also want to know the name of the police officer who murdered Roseanne Boyland. And I want charges against her. It's time people were held accountable for what they did. The wrong people are in jail. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Let me throw that log on the fire. Jim in Wilmington. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. The callers are great, and you have done a great job today. But I believe all the January 6ers should be released, like the first day. But, you know, the Capitol Police, the FBI, the DOJ, the judges, it was all coordinated. It was criminal. Most of those people were invited in. The doors were open. I saw it on video. I did see 2, oh, Jesus, lost my thought here. But Antifa. I saw 2 Antifa that I recognize in other videos on TV. But anyway, they did smash the windows. But smashing windows, 4 years, that's enough time. And a simple assault on a police officer, 4 years, is too much, you know? But anyway, they did all this to cripple Trump so he'd never be able to come back to power. One thing I wanted to say is Nancy Pelosi, she admitted on video, and her daughter videoed her, and she said, this is my fault. I denied President the National Guard.
Oh, you're completely right. Jim, on every count, you're completely right. The reason why, look, let's be clear. They did January 6th really for 2 reasons. Number one, and you nailed it, they wanted to cripple Trump. They wanted to wrap this January 6th around his neck so he would never politically be viable again. And it failed. By the grace of God, it failed. And us, okay, the voters. We just refused to believe their lies and their fake narrative. But they also did it for a second reason. We forget that now. Everybody forgets this. The only person on the planet that had the biggest motive not to see January 6th happen was Trump. Why? His entire strategy for overturning the election, the fraudulent stolen election of 2020, was to give senators, Republican senators, the ability to go on the Senate floor. It was Ted Cruz, it was Josh Hawley, it was Marsha Blackburn, and everyone took a state. Pennsylvania, the 4 contested states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Pennsylvania. And they were going to make their case in front of the eyes of the country and the world, because now all eyes were on Capitol Hill. Will Mike Pence certify? Will the Congress certify? Okay, Pence in particular. And so they wanted to make the case why they should send it back to the states. Why the slate of electors should be sent back. So the one thing Trump never wanted was the breach of the Capitol. The one thing the guy doesn't want is rubber bullets flying and tear gas and pepper spray and people breaching the Capitol and going in and clashes with the police. That destroyed his entire strategy. And that's exactly what happened. Because Ted Cruz never got to make his presentation. Josh Hawley, Marsha Blackburn, they never got the chance to make their case. In fact, it was the opposite. After January 6th, they rubber stamped Biden's victory. And by the way, I'm telling you, the only thing, all of what happened on that day, Jim, delayed Biden's certification 2 hours. I'm telling you, I swear, look it up. Okay, Julie Kelly has all the facts on this. Literally, that's it. That's your so-called blocking the peaceful transfer of power. 2 hours. A delay. I mean, he still got certified. We had 4 years of this buffoon. So, literally, nothing happened except a 2-hour delay. So, it destroyed Trump's chances to to challenge the election and overturn Biden's fraudulent victory. And that was the plan all along. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It was, we ensure Biden is now the illegitimate president. We ensure the steal. The American people don't hear how they stole the election. And we now smear Trump and his supporters as insurrectionists and terrorists. We can start rounding him up. We can start putting him in jail. And politically, he'll be finished. Finished, as you put it, crippled. And honestly, look, let me be, really, it's Thanksgiving. Let's be honest with each other. For the first year, we forget that now. But throughout 2021, that tactic actually worked. It did. Look back. Please don't take my word for it. You never abandoned him. I never abandoned him. But you look at the polls. Trump's polls are in the toilet. Trump in 2021 was considered politically gone. J6 temporarily discredited him among many voters. And when you asked people, who do they want to be the Republican nominee, Trump was not leading au contraire. On the contrary, people were talking Ron DeSantis. They were throwing other names. And then they made a fatal mistake. Their lust for power and tyranny, their hatred of Trump, their Trump derangement syndrome did them in. Because that's when they started the lawfare. And that's when you can clearly see it. Look, the charts don't lie. The stats don't lie. Every case against him, his popularity went up a little more. And then a little more. And then a little more. And then a little more. Every case they threw at him, he got more popular. Why? Because the American people said, no, whoa, wait. No, I'm sorry, you're railroading the guy. Whoa, this is overkill. Whoa, this is persecution. This is harassment. Whoa. Hey, no. You guys are trying to destroy him for political reasons. And that revived Trump. That resuscitated Trump. And then, of course, he just kept going and powering through, and Biden's presidency began to collapse, and he was making fatal mistakes, and then the whole thing began to unravel. But my point is, it almost worked for them in that first year. And that's why I'm appealing to Trump. Look, you got to turn the tables on him right away. Right away. Why did Nancy Pelosi refuse 10 to 20,000 National Guard troops? Because you're right. In that video that her daughter shot, she admits on film, on the video, that she's panicking now. Or now there's stuff going on everywhere. And she's like, I'm responsible. There should have been more security there. Of course there should have been more security there. So, to me, Pelosi bears primary responsibility for what happened on January 6th. There is no question. There's no question. But I want to know the role of Mitch McConnell, because he turned down security that day, 3 days before. He turned down National Guard troops. And I want to know who else was involved. And I guarantee you, Jim, I'll bet you the best steak at the best steakhouse. You take your pick. This was a deep state plot to sabotage, frame, and destroy Trump. And by the way, us, his supporters in the process. And that's why they don't want Gaetz as Attorney General. That's why they had to move heaven and earth to derail and kill the Gaetz nomination, because Gaetz vowed to get to the bottom of what happened on J6. He's made it a personal mission of his. And that's why they had to destroy his nomination, and that's what they did. But now Trump's going to name him special counsel. So what Robert Mueller did for the Russia hoax, okay, they put him on that. Now we're going to put Matt Gaetz on January 6th. Blank you. And then show the American people exactly how complicit everybody was in what happened to Trump. So, look, Jim, I got to tell you, I think the deep state now is in the biggest trouble I've ever seen my entire life. In my entire life, they are now for the first time genuinely out of the shadows, in the sunlight, where they're very vulnerable, and they're on the ropes. Final word to you, Jim.
Everything you say is true, and that's what I believe. And I just want to say one other thing. I believe it was 4 or 5 Capitol Police, from what I understand, committed suicide. I believe they had a heavy heart. They were involved in this, maybe not on purpose. They got, wrapped into it. But why would 4 or 5 police officers commit suicide?
Well, that's a great point. Well, because they were ordered to open the doors. They were ordered. Look, they entrapped these people. They framed them. It was a setup. And I think they knew it was part of a plot to destroy Trump and to destroy these people, these innocent people who just showed up to protest. Their God-given First Amendment rights to protest. And so they realized, oh my God, we were now part of a nefarious strategy, really a coup against the sitting president of the United States. We were pawns. And I think many of them couldn't live with themselves. Just my opinion. Jim, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Agree, disagree. Bob in Medford. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
This is Bob Antonellis, as you recall, ran for U.S. Senate
Bob.
against Elizabeth Warren. Yep.
Yes.
Well, I have another proverbial log to throw onto the fire when it comes to this Liz Cheney. It's going to shock you. It's going to stun you. And I've been very busy since the election. And just yesterday, my second book went live on Amazon, and it's called The Hidden 9/11 Blood Trail. And I'm very happy to hear you describe the thing as an inside job. There's a lot more inside jobs out there to uncover, and I'm going to give you one that's going to send shockwaves through Washington. And what I discovered when I was doing my 9/11 research in Boston, the building, the Boston Custom House, there's issues with that. We'll talk about it But then I discovered that the Big Ben is the same building. Then I discovered that the Woolworth building in New York City, there's something I learned about on 9/11, and it's available on video. It will shock you. And there were missiles launched from the building during the melee, and all these press people on the radio were talking, people calling in saying, there's missiles. There's actual videos of missiles, and it's connected to Halliburton, Dick Cheney, and Liz Cheney. And if you want, I can give you the link to the video is in my, described in my book. But I can give it to you.
Oh, no, Bob. Look, Bob, I got to say this. Look, you have done an admirable job of uncovering the neoconservatives, the warmongers, the military-industrial complex, the deep staters, okay, the ruling class, the uniparty. I mean, there's the establishment, whatever you want, the swamp, whatever you want to call them, and their obsession with war. And the Cheneys are one of the leading oligarchs in our country. They are up to their eyeballs in the military-industrial complex, in defense contracts, Halliburton, you mentioned that. They have been making money off of war now for the last 30-some years. And when Trump walked down that aisle, that escalator, forgive me, and said, we're going to end these forever wars, the Cheneys put a political contract out on Trump. And that's another thing that's going to be exposed. Liz Cheney lied on the January 6th committee. 9:20 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Cindy in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Cindy, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure, Cindy.
I hear you're talking about J6 today a little bit.
Yes.
I'm a J6er. I just got sentenced. 67-year-old grandma from New Hampshire. And I was sentenced with 4 months incarceration, followed by 2 months home detention, $5,000 fine, 1 year supervised probation, all for walking through that building. And I was there that day to stand up for my grievances against the government for what I believe was a fraudulent election. And I know right now there's a lot of chatter about pardons and who deserves pardons and who doesn't. And it's the typical divide and conquer, get everybody fighting against each other and take your eye off what's really the issue. And that was they were covering up that fraudulent election. That's what I think.
Oh, no question. Cindy, no question. No question about it. Cindy, if you don't mind if I just back up a little bit, what was your alleged crime? And I put crime in quotation marks. That a grandmother, 67 years old, that you should go to prison for four months. And was it a year probation? What did you do that was so dangerous to the country that you had to go behind bars for 4 months?
With a flag in my hand. I said, this place needs a good saging. I said, we own this building and we own you. Stop the steal in USA. And I walked out. And I never touched anything. I never broke anything. I never hurt anyone. I asked for directions how to get out of the building.
Cindy, approximately how long were you in the building?
26 minutes. Capitol. 26
so
minutes.
Less than, look at this. I got my iPad on, and I guess I'm being spied on. It's unbelievable. I got my iPad on, and it's starting to go on about J6 and the January 6ers. It's unbelievable. I mean, what they're doing with technology now and how they're spying on us. But anyway, let that go. Cindy, so you were there for less than half an hour. You were waving a flag. You said, we own this building. We need to know the truth about what happened on, at the stolen election. And you didn't vandalize anything. You didn't break anything. You didn't touch anything. You never assaulted anybody. And for this, they put you, a grandmother, in jail for 4 months?
I'm not there yet. I have to call every Monday to find out if they've got a room for me and where I'm going to go and where they're going to house me. But yeah, and I've already been for a full year. I was arrested in June of 23, and I've been on probation since. I can't go out of my state. I can't, I have to ask for permission wherever I go. I can't have guns. I have to have urinalysis tests on demand. They come visit me. I have to check in once a month.
Basically, like you're a terrorist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. And we tried.
I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm. If I'm getting too personal, please tell me. Why do they need a urine test?
I had 67, back when I was in my 20s, I was, I had issues with alcohol and drugs. I've been clean and sober for 38 years, and they're doing this.
Because 40 years ago, you had an issue with drugs and alcohol over, 40 years ago?
Yep, correct.
And now they want you to take urine. These people are unbelievable. They really are. Cindy, I've got to ask you, I know you're saying the real issue, and you're right. The election was stolen. That's the real issue. But where do you stand? Do you think Trump should issue a blanket pardon, or should he do it on a case-by-case basis?
That's the issue everybody's challenged with. There were bad actors in there that don't deserve pardons, absolutely. But I think, for myself, we're tired. We're tired of dealing with fighting this issue, and do the blanket pardon and then go back and review the people and do, the charges that are necessary for the bad actors that were there. But this is ridiculous. This can't keep going on, and we can't get divided among ourselves and start fighting with ourselves so that the real issue, which is all of those criminals that are in our government, get off again with what they did.
Amen. Amen. Cindy, I hope Trump issues a pardon immediately on day one, January 20th, when he's inaugurated. That's why I want a blanket pardon, because I think people like you should be pardoned immediately. Even if it's a case-by-case basis, it'll take a while. And I think you've suffered more than enough. In fact, you shouldn't have suffered anything. And this nightmare has to end. Agree, disagree, all of your calls next. 9:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, now there's more coming out. Please, you got to listen to this. Now, Trump's people have gotten hold of shocking video from January 6th, and it is shocking, where you see a police officer. It is a Capitol Police officer who is literally, I'm not kidding, this is not an exaggeration for effect, is holding the doors open and waving people to walk in, while another police officer is escorting more people into the building. So you see the police officer, he's waving to the crowd. And he says, come on in, guys. Yeah, no, it's okay. Come on in. Come on in. Sure, go ahead. No problem. We're letting, don't break anything, okay? But you can come on in. And they're like, really? Yeah, come on in. And there's another police officer. He says, come on, I'll give you the tour. Come on, come with me. Follow me. You want to see the Capitol? Come on in. This was a setup. It was an inside job. I want to know, I want all these police officers now under oath. Who gave you the order to open those doors and provide guided tours and encourage the crowd to go into the building? And after you invite them in, you're charging them with violence? You're charging them with trespassing? You're charging them with breaking and entering? Are you kidding me? Now, super quick, because the lines are full, but you want to talk about an insurrection? Here's a real insurrection. This is a real insurrection. And it's taking place right now, practically in front of our eyes. Remember I talked about this last week? Okay? As usual, Kuhner man, this show, Kuhner country, we're ahead of the curve. So here's how we're ahead of the curve. Listen now to this. Remember I mentioned that moonbat mayor in Denver, Mike Johnston, who says he's going to go to jail to make sure that no illegal alien is deported under Trump? Listen now to him openly say, we will not allow the feds to come into our sanctuary city and deport a single illegal alien. I don't care if this person's a convicted felon, a rapist, a gangbanger, a drug dealer. We don't care. It is literally an insurrection. Listen now to the mayor of Denver, Mike Johnston. Roll cut 11. Mike.
Trump's new border czar, Tom Homan, has said that he is willing to arrest leaders like yourself for standing in the way of these policies that they want to enact. Would you be willing to go to jail for these things?
Yeah, I'm not afraid of that. And I'm also not seeking that. I think the goal is we want to be able to negotiate with reasonable people how to solve hard problems. Republican and Democratic presidents in the past have all tried to find solutions to these problems. President Reagan helped people get access to work so they could stay and support themselves. Biden and Harris worked on restricting entry at the border to close down. There are a lot of ways to approach this problem. We don't think it has to come to this. But yeah, I think when you look at, Ralph Carr has always been one of my heroes. He was the governor who in the middle of the internment of Japanese Americans said this was the wrong thing to do. And he stood up. It was unpopular. People were mad at him about it. That was in the middle of wartime. If the president or any of his actors are going to do things that we think are illegal or immoral or un-American, we'll stand up against those.
And then arrest his ass. He's another one. That's a real criminal. And this stuff about the internment of Japanese Americans, honestly, it's disgusting. Those were American citizens. You're talking about people who came into our country illegally. They're not U.S. citizens. They're illegals. And many of them are convicted felons and criminals who've committed crimes here in the United States. I mean, this is beyond disgusting. Now, Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul, Mr. Constitutionalist, Mr. Libertarian, okay, no fan of deportation, has come out and said what the mayor of Denver just said is the textbook definition of an insurrection. The federal government has lawful authority over immigration. It's in the Constitution. Buddy, you're just a mayor, okay? Trump won the election, and as president of the United States, he has every right to enforce the immigration laws of our land. Not you, the president. Not you, the commander-in-chief. Now, you want to obstruct him? That's aiding and abetting, harboring illegal criminal aliens. Arrest his ass. You want to be a martyr? That's no problem. And the only silver lining out of Biden's gulags, I'm telling you, the only one is, and that's why I'm saying, blanket pardon. Empty out all of Biden's gulags. Empty them out of J6ers and put guys like this clown in there. That's the only silver lining. Hey, we've got the prison space. It's all there. So put them behind bars in place of the J6ers. You guys, for the real insurrectionists, you want to wage a real insurrection? No problem. No problem, baby. We'll lock your ass up. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Jimmy in Dorchester. Thanks for holding, Jimmy, and welcome.
Jeff, I agree with you at what you said about January 6th, where you want him to release everybody. But here's the thing I want to say about General Milley. And there's 3 points I want to make about him, Jeff. Number one, before it happened, 3 days before, Trump asked him for the National Guard. He refused. When it happened on January 6th, he called China, which is treason, and said, I got everything under control. Then, number 3, under this guy, when he retired as a general, are you aware that under him, Brown, and under Austin, and under Biden, and under Harris, we've lost 1,642 military personnel, not in battle, but committed suicide because of their woke agenda.
That's incredible. You just taught me something now, Jimmy. I did not know about that third point. Jimmy, to go back to your first 2 points, which were absolutely excellent points, he also did one other thing. And that to me is as unforgivable as everything else that you've talked about. During January 6th, Milley then convened the heads of the military and told them that they are now to answer to him, not to Trump. You want to talk about an insurrection. He usurped the chain of command and told the military leaders that they no longer can take orders from Trump, that they no longer are accountable or responsible to Trump. They are accountable and responsible to him. He literally usurped Trump. It's naked treason. On top of calling communist China, on top of refusing, he was another one, by the way. 3 days before, Trump sent him a note, email, saying, you know, you got Antifa, you got BLM. Look what they did all summer just a couple months ago. There could be some violence. Can you guys please beef up security? We need 10 to 20,000 National Guard troops. Milley told him to go fly a kite. Milley backed Pelosi all the way. Milley was part of everything that happened on January 6th. He's complicit. On top of that, he usurped the chain of command. That's why I'm asking President Trump, and he knows this because many others are urging him, to do the same thing. Reactivate Milley. He's retired now. No. Reactivate his fat ass and court-martial him. Court-martial him. Not just for the calls to China, but in particular, and have the other generals and have the other military leaders testify under oath how he said to them, and he brags about it. So he shouldn't now pull back from this, where they say, yeah, he told us Trump's no longer our commander-in-chief, that we don't answer to him. We don't answer to Trump. We answer to Milley, the parade general. And I don't know how many years that gets you, but that should put him in the clink. Like, I'm sorry. These people were coup plotters. They were part of an inside job, a coup, to overthrow the legitimately elected president of the United States. And I'm sorry, this crime needs to be exposed. And Cindy, that poor woman, 67-year-old grandmother, is facing 4 years in jail for doing a tour of the Capitol, waving a flag and saying, you work for us. Okay? Stop the stolen election. She's going to do 4 months in jail. She's right. The real story of January 6th was that Joe Biden stole the election from Trump. And the media and the Democrats and the rhinos have been trying to cover it up ever since. Put Milley behind bars. 9:48 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, liberalism's worst nightmare, baby. Okay, many of you are texting, emailing the Kuhner man, and rightly so, saying, well, Jeff, but we had video of the police, waving the crowd into the Capitol, days after January 6th. What's new about this footage that you talked about maybe 20 minutes ago? Well, it's new footage. It's brand new footage, and it's really egregious. Like, I know what everyone's talking about. I've seen those shots in that video as well. No, but this is a different level. This is, you're going to see, it's going to get, I'm sure it's going everywhere on social media. It's not just that they're waving them in. It's you have Capitol Hill police officers, I'm telling you, saying it's going to be okay. Like you can see the people are like, should we go in? Like you could tell they're very hesitant. And they're like, no, we're going to escort you in. It's okay. We're going to escort you. Hey, you want a guided tour? Come on. Come on. We'll give you a guided tour. Come on. Come on. Come on. It's okay. I'm sorry. Insurrection, my you-know-what. My rear end. Insurrection, my rear end. And as, you know, as Peter, Air Force veteran, served several tours in Vietnam, texted me, Jeff, isn't it amazing? None of this video footage went into the hands of the January 6th committee. It's just incredible. Liz Cheney, and there they are, Benny Thompson, and Adam Kinzinger, and Adam Schiff, and Jamie Raskin, with all their PR and their productions and going in front of the cameras and crying it was an insurrection and we'll never be the same again as a country. That's why they destroyed all that video. That's the video that they had. And that would have blown up their insurrection narrative to smithereens. They destroyed evidence. They obstructed justice. They willfully lied and misled the American people. I'm sorry, but heads need to roll. Heads need to roll over this. 617. And by the way, and they're going after poor Grandma Cindy? Poor Grandma Cindy. 4 months in jail. And a year probation. Blank you. 617-266-6868. Mike in New York. Thanks for holding, Mike, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Mike.
I'd like to make a few comments. First of all, I think everybody that was down there on January 6th are patriots. Okay? They were fighting for the country. It was definitely stolen, and they were there because they know that their country was being stolen from them. Thirdly, the government was corrupt. Just like you said, 25% of the evidence of January 6th was destroyed. Now, from what I understand, any time this is improprieties of the government's case, the case is thrown out when not all the evidence is able to be presented. So all, no matter what the January 6th do, should be pardoned by Trump. And the other thing is, I want to see who this guy Biden pardons. I guarantee he's going to pardon his criminal crackhead son. Okay, so let's see who else he pardons. So let's see after that what Trump is going to do. I know no one's happy.
Mike, honestly, 2 dynamite points. Dynamite. And I love the way you're thinking about this. In other words, if I'm Trump, and look, Trump loves to play, 3-dimensional chess. He just does. What's called the feint, right? He'll, put up something or do something, but he's really trying to do something else. In other words, look at the left hand, and he'll hit you with the right hand. So, he throws this out there, case by case basis. Hey, I'm good. Hey, I'm not blanket pardoning anybody. No, it's going to be case by case. And then knowing that Biden will do something like pardon his crackhead, traitor son, turn around and say, well, hey, whoa. If Biden is going to pardon Hunter, well, hey, I'm pardoning every January 6er. To hell with you. So I could easily see Trump use that as the justification and say, I was going to do it case by case, but after what I've seen Biden do, no, absolutely not. No, now everybody's getting pardoned. So I think you're dead on, Mike. I think we have to see what Biden does, and I think that'll change public opinion if Trump wants to go in that direction. Look, and I love your first point. Mike, God forbid, I'm just using this as an example. If you were falsely convicted of murder, never mind breaking and entering or breaching the Capitol or murder, and it came out that the prosecution had exculpatory evidence, video footage, that exonerated you, would free you, proving your innocence, and they destroyed that evidence, Mike, what would happen to those people?
It would be, the case would be thrown out.
And they go to jail, would they not?
Oh, yes, exactly. The ones who destroyed the evidence. That's the January 6th. All the ones that did the investigation have to be charged.
Bingo.
Liz Cheney
Bingo.
should be in shackles, just like they did to Navarro. I want to see these people in shackles like they did to that poor old man coming off the airplane, and they did to Roger Stone to his house. That's right. I want justice. I don't care if you want to call it revenge, retaliation. I don't care what it's called. And the other point, Jeff, I can guarantee you the deep state was afraid to steal the election again because of what happened January 6th, because the American people have had it with the corruption that's going on in this country.
Amen. Mike, outstanding. Amen. Now you know why Liz Cheney went all in against Trump. Now you know why Dick Cheney went all in against Trump. Why? Because now it's her rear end in the sling. Because she knows what she did on that J6 committee. They destroyed exculpatory evidence. Bill in Milton. Bill, I hate to do this to you. We've got 1 minute. The floor is yours. Go.
Jeff, first of all, thank you very much for what you do for the country. You are great, and so isn't your audience. Regarding Milley, what Milley did and talked to the Chinese people behind Trump's back, the commander-in-chief, and to go to the Joint Chiefs and tell them what he did, that's treason. Jail is too good for him. I would consider firing squad or hanging. Honestly, that's the way I feel about Milley. Regarding the blanket pardon, I'm with you by heart. I mean, my heart would tell me to do that, but I would consider
Bill, I know what you're saying. I think I know what you're saying. Pardons, commutations, and there are some people who did wrong, who did evil, and Trump shouldn't pardon them. Basically 99%, but not everyone. I hear you. On that note, bye-bye.